It's Friday, December 1. In the headlines, Jamaica joins the world in recognizing World AIDS Day. And in news from the COP28 Climate Change Summit in Dubai, countries commit $420 million to combat global warming. In business news, TAJ opens non-cash office in Crossroads. Regionally, former PAHO director Dr. Carissa Etienne has died. Internationally, Israel-Hamas fighting resumes after truce expires. And in sports, Jamaica College and St. Andrew Technical both book spots in the Walker Cup finals. This is the Weekend News on PBC Jamaica. I'm Simone Absalom Gale. Another vessel has been added to Jamaica's offshore patrol. The Jamaica Defence Force commissioned His Majesty's Jamaican ship Norman Manley this week. The vessel will be employed in fulfilling the traditional roles of the 1st District JDF Coast Guard. Addressing the official ceremony, which was held at the Port Royal Cruise Terminal in Kingston, Minister of National Security, Dr. Horace Chang, said the acquisition shows the government's commitment to a comprehensive and strategic approach to a sustainable blue economy and national security.
This naming and commissioning ceremony of His Majesty's Jamaican ship Norman Manley further confirms the government's commitment to a comprehensive and strategic approach to a sustainable blue economy and making our island nation a safer and more secure space.
Minister Chang noted that Jamaica has a very expansive maritime space, adding that it is often seen as the prime transshipment route for criminal networks dealing in drugs, guns, and human trafficking.
While Jamaica's location gives it natural advantages for shipping and trade, it places the country on the prime transshipment route for criminal networks, including in drugs, guns, and human trafficking. These are the threats that challenge the development of a sustainable blue economy for Jamaica. Security within Jamaican maritime claim is central to the island's peace, security, and economic growth.
He says the HMJS Norman Manley is the third of 4 offshore patrol vessels procured by the government. He adds that the number of offshore patrol vessels in the fleet is now 5. The COP28 Climate Summit happening now in Dubai aims to accelerate climate progress on an unprecedented scale. To that end, participating countries have committed $420 million to a historic fund for areas suffering the effects of global warming. The host country, the United Arab Emirates, has pledged $100 million, the UK $76 million, and the US $17.5 million. Greenhouse gas emissions are still rising. Scientists say they must be nearly halved in the next 7 years. The Caribbean is one of the regions of the world most vulnerable to climate change. Its large coastal populations and exposed location leave it at the mercy of rising sea levels, stronger storms, and worsening drought. December 1 is recognized as World AIDS Day. HIV and the acquired immunodeficiency virus AIDS came to the public sphere in the 1980s. Since then, scientists, medical professionals, and members of the public have been educated about the virus. In Jamaica, the government has spent millions of dollars on public education. However, Director of Enabling Environment and Human Rights at the National Family Planning Board, Carleen Temple, says stigma and discrimination continues to be a challenge to the national response.
Amazingly, Jamaica has free medication. However, because of stigma and discrimination, it is playing a barrier where persons are afraid to take their medication in public, or so they need very private spaces. So it's hindering persons getting to positive health outcomes.
She says the aim of the Champions for Change campaign is to reinforce the message utilizing both people living with HIV and persons who are not positive.
Let's get persons out there to join and say the same messages that we're saying. Let's reduce and eventually eliminate stigma and discrimination so that persons living with HIV can be themselves and be able to share with people that I'm positive and they don't feel guilty, ashamed, unworthy, or dirty.
A study was done on persons living with HIV dubbed the Stigma Index, and it shows that 33% of PLHIVs are very concerned about stigma and discrimination.
So they experience it through gossip, and sometimes they are harassed, and how they're treated as well. Another major thing, 53% of them said that they felt dirty, they felt ashamed, unworthy because of being HIV positive. Can't have people walking around like that.
There have been several public education campaigns over the years, with Jamaica partnering with regional bodies and the USAID. Why start another campaign?
We're doing this again because stigma and discrimination is rooted into our culture. It is easy, and Donna just shared with us that it's just something that we do. We label persons. The issue is not with labeling where you stigmatized. It's when you now move into this prescribed treatment. For every label you have, there's a prescribed way of treating with persons. That's where the challenge is. Some of those prescribed way of treating is denying persons access. Some of those prescribed way of treatment is actually violating persons' human rights. Rights to access to health, rights to access to sexual and reproductive health, rights to contraceptives.
Let's meet two of the champions, former political ombudsman Donna Parchment Brown and community facilitator for JN+, Joan Stevens.
I am a champion, and that's a great honor for me to have the opportunity to be the voice of the Jamaican who agrees that everyone must be treated with respect and that no one should suffer stigma or discrimination, particularly not people who are living with HIV.
A champion, like when you're running a race, right, and you win it, you feel that's how I see it as, because being HIV positive and you're willing to stand up for what you believe in, that makes you a champion. So that's how I see it, as a person living with HIV.
I'm more inspired because of my complete commitment to human rights and equality of all Jamaicans under the law, as well as in our social and cultural life. That is what drives me. And the knowledge that data shows that people living with HIV have been shamed, have been ostracized, have been deprived of rights that the Constitution actually provides for every Jamaican. That concerns me, and that is what inspires me.
So as a person who is living with HIV for 23 years now, I tell them that I do not let nothing or no one intimidate me, because people will always be who they are. I know everybody doesn't have the strength, because they're easily put down at a certain point, but I always give them that. We remember the Bible when God was traveling the world. We weren't there, but they show us movies. And the same persons who he has around him, the same one put him down to say, crucify him, crucify him. So what's the difference? We are not exceptional. So things will make you as well as it can break you. But I choose to let it make me.
Ms. Temple says there are ways to report discrimination.
There are opportunities to report any form of stigma and discrimination related to HIV. One of the main things I want to put out there is the actual Ministry of Health and Wellness has a department that's responsible, and that department, the program under that department, Standard Investigation Branch, the program under that department, the name of it is Complaints Management System. Good. And what happens with that is you have the opportunity to complain at different levels. So you can complain at the facility that you're at. If you're mistreated at the facility, you can complain there. If you feel that you're not satisfied with the response, you can go to the parish level. So you go to the parish department and make the complaint. If you still feel like you're not satisfied, you go to the regional health authority, which is the head office that manages the different facilities within the regions. If you're still not satisfied, you can also go to the Ministry of Health and Wellness at this department that I talked about. Now, what happened is you can also just go straight to the Ministry of Health and Wellness and go straight to the complaint management system, file your report, and it is investigated. All right? So we have that mechanism within the Ministry of Health and Wellness. That's one. Another one, though, which is where you see a multi-stakeholder approach, is the same Jamaica Network of Seropositive. They have a community-led system that's called Jamaica Anti-Discrimination System. Now, how is that set up? Persons living with HIV are able to give their complaint to other persons living with HIV. So JM Plus has set up the system where they are able to be in the facility and they can actually get the reports themselves. So how the system works right now is that in the facilities, we have persons that we call redress officers. And they're able to contact or speak to persons and say, they're able to say what is going on there, and they are also able to do those reports. That's one. They can encourage persons, if you feel stigmatized or discriminated against, please report it. So people can contact JM Plus if they have a challenge. That's one. Now, how the system works. With that system, there's a committee, a steering committee, a panel review committee. Now, what does that committee do? That committee will get the reports that JM Plus collect. They would actually review the reports. And upon reviewing the report, they actually look at what type of redress can come out. How can it be resolved? On that committee, we have some really significant partners. One of the partners is the Ministry of Health and Wellness, that same department. They're on it as well. We have Jamaican for Justice on that committee. You also have the Jamaica AIDS Support for Life, who's also helping with making sure we get reports in as well. JM Plus, of course, are part of it. The National Family Planning Board is on it. We have the Ministry of Labour and Social Security. So if there's also workplace concerns, you also have that opportunity to do it as well. And we have the Office of the Public Defender also a part of that conversation.
The ambassadors have been working as change agents who will build awareness and motivate members of their networks to get involved in stigma and discrimination reduction efforts. In addition to the champions, there is a media component that includes the development of television and radio commercials, as well as infographics and interviews. Consumers shipping packages through the local courier companies are likely to experience delays over the upcoming festive season as couriers grapple with pressures from a surge in e-commerce volumes. According to President of the E-Commerce Couriers Association, Dr. Mark Gonzalez, package volumes have doubled year on year, a telltale sign that this festive season is shaping up to be a busy one for courier companies. Earlier this week, JETS Limited, which is an electronic banking service company operating Jamaica's national debit card network that trades as Multilink, released data that the recent Black Friday transaction volumes rose to $2.6 billion to hit a record high over the course of 2023. The company forecasts that pre-Christmas shopping will rise even higher to between $2.6 billion and $2.7 billion in point-of-sale and ABM transactions. Time now for more news on the business scene with Danita Rodney.
Welcome to the Extended Business Report. I'm Danita Rodney. In this week's report, Tax Administration Jamaica TAJ has taken another step along its digital roadmap with the introduction of its first non-cash location in the Crossroads area. The cashless office located in the Regal Plaza becomes operational on Friday, December 1 and will operate the standard opening hours Monday to Wednesday 8:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. and Thursdays and Fridays 8:30 a.m. to 3 p.m. Taxpayers are advised that the location will only offer non-cash services, which means that persons may only conduct their transactions using a credit or debit card to make payments. Additionally, not all services will be available at the location. Customers are also reminded that several services are available online via TAJ's website at www.jamaicatax.gov.jm. Now for your market updates. In foreign exchange trading for Thursday, November 30, the US dollar sold for an average of $155.18. The Canadian dollar ended trading at $116. The pound sterling traded for $196.38, and the euro sold for $174.19. In JSE trading, the JSE index advanced by over 1,982 points. The junior market index advanced by over 76 points. The combined market index advanced by over 2,530 points. And the All Jamaican Composite Index advanced by over 2,968 points. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 110 stocks, of which 54 advanced, 37 declined, and 19 traded firm. Stocks advanced for Access Financial Services Limited, AMG Packaging and Paper Company Limited, and Berita Investments Limited. Stocks declined for 138 Student Living Jamaica Limited, 138 Student Living Jamaica Limited Verbal Preference, and AS Bryden and Sons Holdings Limited. Trading firm were Cargo Handlers Limited, Caribbean Cream Limited, and Carreras Limited. The overall volume leaders were Wigton Wind Farm Limited ordinary shares with over 9 million units, One-on-One Educational Services Limited, and Regency Petroleum Company Limited with over 3 million units. In regional stocks, in Trinidad and Tobago, placed a macro index fund posting a volume of 40 shares. On the Barbados Stock Exchange, 0 securities traded. In regional business in Guyana, Denzel D'Souza is a self-taught artist who launched his business, Sword Gaia Arts, last year to facilitate affordable anime cosplay props for local consumers. The 22-year-old entrepreneur told the newsroom that recreating the swords used in his favorite anime brings him immense joy.
"22-year-old Denzel D'Souza is a full-time University of Guyana business student who also recreates sword props for anime conventions. The first time he made these props was 2 weeks prior to the March Anime Rave Spectacle, Mars, held in August 2022, with the goal of providing affordable and good quality products for locals. During an interview with the newsroom at Taro's Merch and Gift Shop, Boyles Place, Brickdam, the young man said this 3-member team carefully and skillfully makes the swords using local products.
It was just very amazing that persons thought that they didn't know that they can get it within their own home turf or their own economy. Not only that, but it ties into affordability. It's very expensive for persons to, get a costume and then to art a sword and these different things. So what we try to do is make it affordable for persons to get it, and to just make the replica as close as possible for them so they could enjoy it, have fun. And that's the main theme for our business, to have fun. We had to start out small. We had to start experimenting and these different things, finding what equipment works with what we had at the time. Everything is locally sourced, the material and so on, nothing is imported. We use the local wood, local paint and everything.
D'Souza's father is an artist, and his input is very important for the business. D'Souza also has a background in technical drawing. By recreating the ideas and designs the clients want, D'Souza finds joy in the growth of the anime community here.
I can remember watching Japanese shows and anime on YouTube when it's not even properly done, but just on YouTube and so on. And that nostalgic feeling that you get, I'm happy to, a lot of persons are getting into that, right? And we can all share the experience. So you need to experiment to see what are the pieces that you have to do, what is it that you can do in order to make it closer to this particular product that you want to make. So I started up doing some research after the experiments, just trying to feel my way through it at first, but then I started to do research, and from there I started to make little improvements to what I'm doing. So it was kind of just a blank slate basically, and I started to improve on like the wrapping, for instance, with the handle, how to wrap the handle. Let's say, for instance, if I need to cut it to a specific size. Let's say, for instance, if I need to make the guard a little bit bigger, smaller, and those little small minor improvements to like get the at least near perfection to what I want. What we usually use is mainly silver body and green art and other lightweight material, in which we would grind, sand down into the shape that we want, and then after we then prime the material, have it treated. And from there, we put on the paint job and then have protective coats over them.
In market data for oil prices were broadly steady on Friday, following a 2% drop on Thursday, with the market seemingly unconvinced that the latest round of production cuts by the OPEC Plus coalition will be able to lift prices out of their recent slump. Brent crude futures rose 22 cents to $81.08 a barrel, and West Texas Intermediate crude futures rose 31 cents to $76.27. And that was the business report on PBCJ. Back to you, Simone.
In regional news, Dr. Carissa Etienne, former director of the Pan American Health Organization and the World Health Organization's regional director for the Americas, has died. The 71-year-old from Dominica passed away in the U.S. in the early hours of Friday morning. Dr. Etienne collapsed in her bathroom during the night, hours after being given a clean bill of health from her doctor. She was rushed to hospital by ambulance, where she died a short time later. Dr. Etienne was a passionate advocate for universal health coverage and a much-loved daughter of the soil among Nature's Isle residents. In Antigua and Barbuda, the government says the offer of a 32% compassionate payment to former employees of LIAT 1974 Limited still stands. The update comes as efforts continue in earnest to get LIAT 2020 into the skies. The update was provided during Thursday morning's post-cabinet media briefing. Garfield Burford reports.
The government continues to be laser-focused on getting LIAT 2020 off the ground, and on Thursday, Chief of Staff in the Prime Minister's office, Ambassador Lionel Hurst, had this update.
As soon as Airpeace is ready, and we think it will be ready before Christmas, we might see an expanded LIAT, because they will bring 3 or 4 airplanes into the mix, and we get the airplanes that the CDB now owns, plus the 1 airplane that is stuck in St. Vincent, and LIAT 2020 will be on its way, we hope, before Christmas.
The Gaston Brown administration has so far kept LIAT 1974 Limited in the skies, albeit on a smaller scale, preventing a piecemeal liquidation back in 2020. Nigeria's largest carrier, Airpeace, now has a controlling 70% interest in LIAT 2020 and is set to expand the airline's fleet and footprint of services. As the transition process continues toward LIAT 2020, it is clear the assets of LIAT 1974 are limited.
But if you sell them, you might get $4 or $5 million, or some such amount, which is really not enough to meet all the obligations of LIAT 1974.
That's partly because the aircraft used by LIAT 1974 are owned by the Caribbean Development Bank, the CDB. Here is the government's hope.
So when the aircraft are sold, the money goes to CDB. And we're hoping that CDB will sell the airplanes to us at a discount, and that we can put them back into the air and make them a part of LIAT 2020.
The administration is also making it clear its offer of 32% as a compassionate payment for the former workers, in line with Antigua and Barbuda's shareholding in LIAT 1974 Limited, still stands.
The union tells them to hold out for 100%. Well, those who have jobs flying airplanes in Africa and Canada, parts of the United States and so on, they might be able to afford that, but there are people living in Antigua who have children and families, and they need the resources, and the way they get those resources is by signing up for the compassionate payment, which the Honorable Gaston Brown, as Minister of Finance, and the Cabinet of Antigua and Barbuda arranged. And there still is $1 million, I think it's US dollars, $1 million US remaining in this account. So that any LIAT worker who is interested can in fact collect his or her money, but it won't be 100%.
Ambassador Hurst says the remaining 68% is owed by the other former shareholder governments. The administration is clearly hoping no turbulence is on the horizon for the carrier. Garfield Burford, ABS News.
As institutions across Trinidad and Tobago move to reap the benefits of digitalization, two experts say to expect an increase in cyber attacks and highlighted some measures that may be needed to respond to the ever-present threats from bad actors in the virtual world.
Despite the numerous recommendations by experts on how to avoid a cybersecurity breach, institutions continue to fall prey to the wiles of hackers. Three of the latest victims in G&G being the Telecommunication Services of Trinidad and Tobago, TSTT, PriceSmart, and Quartz. In late October, the names and private information of some of the country's top officials were taken from TSTT's database and left on the dark web. Chief Information Officer of Teleo Systems Limited, Dale Wilson, advised companies from having a false sense of security, thinking that they could be 100% safe.
You're seeing different organizations putting on cybersecurity conferences and webinars, so there are a couple of them happening here every year. That is raising the bar in terms of awareness, and people are talking more about it and urging companies as well as individuals to do more to protect themselves.
Director of Microsoft Azure, Darren Mohammed, in his response to the number of establishments that had been susceptible to cyber attacks, said that there were simple measures that could be undertaken to mitigate the threats posed by phishers.
If someone logs into your account and it's not from Trinidad and Tobago, it wouldn't allow it unless you authenticate on your phone. That simple thing, with capability, which we've built into all our products from the ground up, it really is, it would solve a lot of problems, solve the phishing.
However, Mr. Mohammed agreed that updating the Data Protection Act would be a critical tool to enable companies that are more tuned to the necessities of cybersecurity. He noted that the European Union's General Data Protection Regulation was one of the most efficient pieces of legislation on the matter, since it created not only policies and penalties for breaches in the law, but also rules around which organizations could house data.
So when you think of something like a cyber attack, right, and you know that customers' data was compromised, then you would have a certain amount of time limit, right, before you notify the customer. When you think of privacy, if a customer is demanding or a citizen is demanding that their data be deleted from a particular system, you have to also put those things.
Mr. Mohammed noted that while the Trinidad and Tobago government has partly proclaimed the Data Protection Act, he would encourage them to do so fully, since it is a step in the right direction.
In international news, Israel's military has resumed its attacks on the Gaza Strip. The truce between Israel and Hamas officially expired about 4 hours ago. Airstrikes and heavy shelling followed shortly after. Negotiations led by Qatar, Egypt, and the U.S. to extend the truce are understood to be ongoing. Al Jazeera has the details.
Israel announced the end of the ceasefire in Gaza with a barrage of missile strikes targeting residential areas and refugee camps from the north to the south of the Strip. This is the Rafah refugee camp in southern Gaza. On Thursday, US Secretary of State Antony Blinken told Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu that Israel cannot repeat the mass civilian casualties and displacement of Palestinians it inflicted on northern Gaza. The density of the buildings and the number of people forced to relocate here shows how devastating a repeat of what happened in the north of Gaza will be. Netanyahu says Israel is committed to its goals for the war, the annihilation of Hamas and the return of all hostages. This is the Al-Maghazi refugee camp in central Gaza. The few hospitals still open in Gaza are receiving a new wave of casualties. One of the first is a child. And bodies are already piling up.
I've seen stretchers coming through, ambulances coming as we drove here 100 metres away maximum from Nasser Hospital now, the biggest remaining hospital for the people of Gaza here.
In sports, Jamaica College, JC, and St. Andrew Technical, Stats, have both booked their spots in the final of the 2023 ISA Digital Walker Cup competition following comfortable semi-final wins at the Stadium East field this week. Stats is seeking its first Walker Cup title. And that's it for the weekend news on PBCJ. Thank you so much for watching.